Wow. Okay, so you probably saw the news already, right?
Mm-hmm.
President Trump just dropped, a bomb, really, on global trade.
Yeah, shook things up a bit, didn't he? Big changes.
Big changes. So that's what we're diving into today. We're talking tariffs. We've got this BBC News report, hot off the press, basically, breaking down the announcement.
Whole shebang, yeah.
Exactly. What happened at the White House press conference and how all of this is looking, across the pond from our friends in the UK.
Want to give you the, I guess the play-by-play in a way, help you make sense of things.
Because this is happening right now.
It is, and we all kind of need to wrap our heads around not just what's happening right now, but what this means for all of us down the road.
So this is your crash course, basically.
Yeah, your cheat sheet to understanding this whole global shift, no jargon, just the core issues. Why is everyone freaking out? What's the long game here? We're going to get into all of that.
So the BBC, they lead with this. President Trump declared sweeping tariffs on goods imported into the United States from all countries.
Bold move.
Bold is an understatement, I think. It sounds like, is anything actually exempt here?
Well, so the report, it clarifies that the baseline is a 10% tariff on goods
Okay.
coming in from, well, everywhere, every single country,
Okay.
including, of course, the UK. But that's just the beginning. It gets more interesting.
Right, more targeted. Because the report mentions these higher tariffs, punitive tariffs, they call them,
Right.
on something like 60 countries the U.S. sees as, I guess, the worst offenders when it comes to trade imbalances.
Yeah, the ones they really feel aren't playing fair.
So we're not just talking a little nudge up. These are some pretty serious percentage increases.
Oh, yeah, some big jumps. China, for example, 34% tariff.
Oof.
The EU, 20%. You see some even bigger numbers. 49% on goods from Cambodia, 37% from Myanmar, Laos, and Bangladesh.
That's huge.
It is, and it really shows you that the U.S., they've, done their homework in a way. They've got different levels of concern, let's call it, for each trading partner.
So it's targeted, but also kind of a blanket approach at the same time.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
And it wasn't just these kind of sliding scale tariffs. The report also mentions a 25% tariff on all foreign-made cars, effective immediately.
Yeah, that was a big one.
That's going to ripple through, pretty much every industry globally, right?
Oh, yeah. Cars are, well, everything's connected in that industry. Global supply chains, parts, labor, the whole 9 yards. A 25% increase, that's a major roadblock.
And the report quotes Trump saying that all of this, all these tariffs together, will bring in, get this, hundreds of billions of dollars a year.
Ambitious.
Make America wealthy again, he said.
Makes you wonder what economic models they're working with to get to those numbers.
He actually went as far as to call the day of this announcement America's Liberation Day. That's
a statement.
a statement. Yeah, it's not just about economics, is it?
No, it's about, I guess, independence, right? A clean break from how things have been done, a move towards, putting America first, at least in the way they're talking about it.
So let's dig into the why. Reciprocal tariffs, that's the phrase that keeps coming up. Trump said, they do it to us, we do it to them. Simple enough, right?
Yeah. On the surface, maybe. But if you read between the lines of this report, the thinking behind it is way more complex. It's not just a tit-for-tat on existing tariffs.
Not a mirror image.
No, not at all. The White House, they're taking a much broader view. They're looking at, well, what they call the total burden on American goods when they're exported.
Yeah. So not just taxes at the border.
Right. They're factoring in all sorts of things, some of it more controversial, harder to quantify, like, theft of intellectual property. That's a sticky one in trade talks.
Okay, so it's this much broader definition, and that's actually a key takeaway here because it shows you the how they're justifying this whole thing.
Right. It's the foundation of the argument.
So break it down for us. Besides those obvious import duties, what else are they throwing into this equation?
Well, the report details a few things. First, you've got what are called non-tariff barriers.
Okay.
These are, think of it as like rules and regulations that can make it harder, more expensive for U.S. goods to get into a foreign market.
Give me an example.
Sure. So let's say you're a UK business. You're trying to export, I don't know, cheese to the U.S.
Okay.
It's not just about the percentage tax at the border. There might be specific labeling requirements, very particular, or sanitary standards that are really tough to meet.
So those hidden obstacles.
Exactly. And then you've got currency manipulation. That's another factor they're looking at.
Explain that one.
So that's the idea that a country might, mess with their own currency, make it weaker on purpose so their exports are cheaper, imports more expensive, gives their own industries an advantage.
Like a constant sale.
Yeah, exactly. And then this is where it gets even trickier. They're including theft of intellectual property as a trade barrier.
So they're casting a wide net here when it comes to what qualifies as a barrier.
Very wide.
And they're claiming to have actually put a number on all this, on the total impact.
Right. They've crunched the numbers, they say.
The report had some pretty crazy examples of what they came up with.
Yeah, Cambodia, for instance, they calculated the equivalent of a 97% tariff on American goods. When you factor in all these different types of barriers.
The 97%.
Yeah. EU, they say it's 39%. And it's these calculations, right, these perceived disadvantages that they're using to justify these new tariffs.
Right.
Trump even said in the report that he's, quote, being kind by only doing half of what they calculated.
That is wild. I mean, talk about putting your money where your mouth is. So let's bring this home to the UK specifically. What's the immediate impact on British goods going to the U.S.?
Well, according to the report, it's that 10% tariff across the board from this Saturday on everything coming from the UK into the U.S.
And what's the reaction been like from the UK government?
Well, publicly, at least from what the BBC is reporting, they're trying to stay calm, calm and pragmatic. That's what Chancellor Rachel Reeves said. The Prime Minister said they'll keep talking to the U.S., try to get a wider trade deal going, trying to de-escalate, I think.
But behind closed doors, I imagine there's a bit more concern.
Oh, I'm sure.
The business secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, he also made a statement, right? What did he have to say?
He stressed, that the government, they're going to always act in the best interest of UK businesses and consumers, highlighted that they're already in talks with the U.S. On a more limited trade deal, hoping that maybe, that'll help with the tariffs. He also mentioned that the UK has, tools, options, and they're not afraid to use them to protect UK interests. But he was also clear that nobody wants a trade war.
So walking a tightrope.
Absolutely. Trying to, stand up for themselves, but not provoke anything.
And the BBC's economics editor, Faisal Islam, he actually gave some initial cost estimates. What's this going to cost the UK?
Well, he's suggesting somewhere in the range of £6 to £7 billion, but that includes the car tariff, that new 25%. So that's going to hit the UK auto industry pretty hard. So yeah, the 10% on everything else is bad enough, but those car tariffs, that's a whole other layer of pain. Are there any sectors in particular? I mean, do you think that'll be hit harder by this 10% based on what we know?
That's a good question. We can look into that. Now, this is obviously bigger than just the UK, right? The report also talks about the global implications of all of this. What are the main worries on a global scale?
Well, the big one is trade war, a full-blown trade war. The fear is that these U.S. tariffs, they're going to trigger retaliation. Other countries will slap on their own tariffs, then the U.S. responds, and it just spirals. Hurts everyone, slows down the whole global economy. It could even trigger a recession. And Islam, he made this really interesting point in the report. He said this is not just, tinkering with tariffs. This is, and I'm quoting here, the fundamental model of trade in the world will shift hugely, end quote. And he stressed, this is by design. This is what the U.S. wants.
Wow. That's a big statement, this idea of a total shift in global trade and the fact that the U.S. is doing these different levels, right? The UK at 10%, the EU at 20%. And that could really mess things up, couldn't it?
Oh, yeah. It can lead to all sorts of distortions, let's call them. Businesses might shift where they're getting their stuff from or where they're making their stuff just based on these tariffs.
To avoid the higher costs?
Right, exactly. And then you've got, the fact that Taiwan, for example, they're a U.S. ally and they're still facing high tariffs. So it's not just about trade deficits, it seems.
It's not as clear-cut as they make it sound.
No, there's a real risk of collateral damage.
And Faisal Islam, his final thought in this report is, it's kind of chilling, really.
Yeah, he said, this could change the geography of economics for good. Powerful stuff.
I mean, that really drives home the point that this isn't a blip. This could have a lasting impact.
Reshaping, that's the word he used, reshaping the global economy. It really makes you think, what will the world look like in 5-10 years?
Okay, so for you listening, let's recap. The U.S. has just slapped these tariffs on pretty much every country. They're justifying it with this idea of reciprocal trade, but it's based on a very broad definition of what a trade barrier even is. And it's already having a real impact, particularly for countries like the UK. And it could potentially destabilize the global economy.
And this isn't just, numbers on a spreadsheet. This is a sign of a much bigger change. How we do business globally, that's being challenged. And countries are going to have to reevaluate their relationships, their strategies, even their alliances.
So here's the big question for you, the listener.
Yeah.
How might all of this, these tariffs, this shift towards protectionism, how might it affect you, your work, your life, your investments? What are the opportunities here? What are the dangers? We really want you to think about the long game, the ripple effects. This isn't just a headline. This is a turning point.